Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. We're going to be focusing this time on school culture,
Yeah, exciting stuff.
and we're looking at this through the lens of a TEDx talk from a guy named Tony Feghali.
Okay.
Um, and he gave this talk at TEDxSJS Cornet Chahwan YOUTH. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
So the kind of interesting thing about Tony is that he's got kind of an unusual background. He's an entrepreneur,
Yeah, he's been in the tech space as well.
and he's also been involved in education. So
Really interesting mix.
yeah, which is kind of, unusual. You don't really see that too often. And so we're going to be looking at his talk, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but we're also going to be kind of looking at the other stuff about him too.
Yeah, a little bit of background.
So we've got his bio, we've got the transcript of the talk, so we can really kind of dig into what he's talking about.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I found really interesting is at the beginning of his talk, he asks everybody to close their eyes and think back to their school days.
Yeah, that was a really cool moment.
Yeah, and kind of like, what were some of the things that really stuck with them?
It made an impact.
Yeah, what made an impact,
Yeah. And actually, he goes on to tell a really funny story about his own school days,
Oh, yeah.
which I thought was really, really interesting. It really kind of just, sets the scene for the rest of the talk.
Oh, yeah, this is the one where he was in like a fifth grade spelling bee.
Yes. The spelling bee.
And he messed up the word skyscraper
Oh, man. And in front of all those people.
in front of girls from another school.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Oh, it was brutal. You could just feel the cringe like through the screen,
Yeah. Totally.
But it was kind of a great way to, you know, I think what he was trying to get at there is that these seemingly small moments, like, they really can have such a lasting impact on us.
Yeah.
They shape our view of ourselves, our place in the school, all of that.
Absolutely. And it leads perfectly into his main point, which is that school culture goes way beyond academics. It's about values. It's about traditions. It's the stories that get passed down. It's even like the unspoken rules and norms.
Yeah. He actually uses this really great analogy. He compares it to like the DNA of the school.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. Yeah, like the DNA.
Yeah. So I kind of want to dig into that a little bit more. Like, if we think about it as DNA, what are some of the specific genes that make up the culture of the school that he's talking about?
Okay, so he mentions a few different values, but there are three that he seems to really connect with personally.
Right.
And the first one, this was really interesting to me, is this idea that God comes first.
That is interesting, especially given his background in tech and AI.
Yeah, you don't always see those two worlds collide, so I was kind of curious to see how he brought those together.
Yeah.
Another core value that he highlights is this emphasis on community, and specifically the importance of shared meals.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he talks about how eating together fosters a sense of belonging. It builds relationships. It creates these connections within the school.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
Such a simple thing, but it can really have a big impact on how people feel connected to each other.
Absolutely. And the third value that really stood out to him was this idea of always giving things one more try.
I like that.
Which kind of ties back to that spelling bee story.
It does.
But it's also about, building resilience in the students.
Yeah.
Teaching them to persevere and overcome challenges, not just in school, but in life in general.
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially in today's world where it feels like things are moving so fast.
Absolutely.
It's so easy to get discouraged and just give up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a really valuable lesson.
Absolutely. So we can see that this school really emphasizes character development alongside academics.
Yeah, but here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Tony argues that even the strongest school cultures, they can fade over time.
Yeah. How does he explain that?
Well, he uses this really powerful image. He compares it to a photograph losing its color.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Teachers leave, leadership changes, the world outside evolves, and those core values that we were just talking about, they can start to get diluted or even forgotten.
Yeah.
And so he poses this really provocative question. What if we had an AI that could act as a culture keeper?
Okay. Now we're getting into some futuristic stuff.
I know, right? Like
Yeah.
a digital guardian of the school's essence.
So how would that work, like practically?
Well, his vision is basically to create an AI that has access to all of the school's history. yearbooks, speeches, student projects, like all of it.
So it's like a giant database of the school's DNA.
Exactly. And the idea is that this AI could then be used to guide decisions, big and small, to make sure that they align with those core values that we were talking about.
Okay. So it helps the school stay true to itself even as things change around it?
Right. But, I mean, obviously, this raises a lot of questions.
Of course.
Like, how do you teach an AI to understand something as complex and nuanced as school culture?
Yeah, that's a big one. And that's where Tony introduces this character called Batros AI.
Okay, so Batros AI is like the embodiment of this culture keeper idea.
Exactly. And he describes it as this AI companion that can act as like a tutor or a coach, even kind of like a spiritual guide for the students.
Wow, so it's not just like a fact-checking machine?
No, it's way more than that. It has this kind of personality, this almost human quality to it.
Interesting. So how does this Batros AI actually interact with the students?
Okay, so Tony paints this really vivid picture. He talks about two students, Brahim, who's kind of shy, and Hala, who's really popular.
Okay, classic high school dynamic.
Right. And of course, Brahim has a crush on Hala.
Of course he does. So what happens?
Well, Batros AI, being Brahim's like digital confidant, suggests that he starts a podcast club at school.
Interesting. Okay.
But it's not just any podcast club. Batros AI helps Brahim set up this mini radio station to broadcast the podcast, too.
Whoa, hold on. So AI is like playing matchmaker now. This is getting juicy.
It is, right. But it's not just about like the romantic angle. Tony uses this story to show how Batros AI can empower students to be creative.
Okay.
Connect with their community and ultimately live out those school values in these really unexpected ways.
I see. So it's not just about preserving the past. It's about helping the culture evolve in a way that's still true to itself.
Exactly. And what's really important is that Tony acknowledges the potential downsides of AI. There are valid concerns about AI becoming too powerful,
Right.
too influential.
Like a lot of people have those doomsday scenarios in mind.
Totally. But he's not like blindly advocating for AI to take over everything. He's approaching it with a lot of caution.
So he's cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
He sees the potential for good, but he also recognizes the risks. And I think that's what makes his perspective so valuable.
Yeah. It's not about just blindly embracing technology.
Right.
It's about thinking critically about how we can use it to improve our lives.
Absolutely.
And preserve the things that are really important to us. So what's his call to action then? What does he want us to actually do?
Well, he's not just saying, hey, let's all go build our own culture keeper AI. It's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
He's challenging us to be more proactive about shaping school culture.
So it's about taking ownership.
Exactly. We can't just sit back and let things happen. We need to be intentional about the kind of culture we want to create. And he even goes a step further.
Wow.
He suggests that we should be designers of AI, not just consumers of it.
Designers of AI. That's interesting. What does he mean by that?
Well, he's basically saying that we need to be mindful of the values and information that we feed into AI systems.
Okay.
Because those inputs, they're ultimately going to shape the outputs.
Right. Like the decisions and actions that the AI takes.
Exactly. So it's like we're shaping the AI that's shaping us. It's this feedback loop. And Tony's point is that we need to be conscious participants in that loop, not just passive bystanders.
Okay. So it's about being more aware of how we're interacting with technology.
Yes, exactly. And understanding that we have a responsibility to use it in a way that aligns with our values.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But going back to Batros AI for a second, I'm still a little fuzzy on how it actually works.
Yeah.
Like, how does it access and process all of that school history?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to be honest, Tony doesn't go into the technical details in his talk.
Okay.
But it's fun to speculate. Right?
Sure.
I imagine it would probably involve some natural language processing to analyze all that text from documents and speeches.
Right.
Maybe some image recognition to understand the content of yearbooks and photos.
Yeah. And maybe even some kind of sentiment analysis to gauge the emotional tone of different pieces of content.
Absolutely. And all of that data would be used to create this really comprehensive model of the school's culture, its values, its traditions, everything.
So it's like Batros AI is building this intricate map of the school's DNA.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
And then using that map to navigate decisions and interactions.
Exactly. It's like giving the AI a deep understanding of the school's soul.
But wouldn't there be a risk of the AI becoming too rigid, too stuck in the past? I mean, school culture needs to evolve, right?
Yeah, that's a really important point, and it's something that Tony acknowledges. He's not suggesting that we use AI to freeze school culture in time. It's more about finding a balance
Okay.
between preserving what's valuable and adapting to the changing world.
So it's not about clinging to the past, but using the past to inform the future.
Precisely. And I think that's where the real power of AI comes in. Imagine an AI that can not only preserve school culture, but also help it evolve in a meaningful way.
Okay, so it's not just about preventing cultural erosion. It's about fostering cultural growth.
Exactly. Think about it. An AI that could help identify emerging trends within the school community, anticipate challenges, maybe even suggest innovative solutions that we wouldn't have thought of on our own.
That's pretty mind-blowing. It's like having a digital partner in shaping the future of the school.
Exactly. And this is where Tony's background really comes into play.
How so?
Remember, he's got this unique combination of experience in entrepreneurship, technology, and education.
Oh, right, right.
So he's not just some tech enthusiast with a pie-in-the-sky idea. He actually understands the complexities of the education system.
Right.
He gets the importance of human connection
Yeah.
and the need for a balanced approach. And I
Yeah.
think that really comes across in his talk. He's not just throwing out these abstract ideas. He's grounding them in real-world examples, relatable stories, and just a genuine passion for education.
Yeah, you can tell he really cares about this stuff. So it sounds like his vision for AI in education is much more than just about, like, automating tasks or improving efficiency.
Right. It's about using technology to enhance the human experience,
Yeah.
to help us connect more deeply with each other, with our values, and with our shared history.
And ultimately, to create a better future for education.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a really fascinating discussion.
Yeah, it's been great.
Tony's ideas are definitely thought-provoking. And I love how he challenges us to be more intentional about the role of technology in our lives.
Me too. I think it's a conversation we need to be having, especially as AI becomes more and more integrated into our world.
So, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this question.
Okay.
If you could design your own Culture Keeper AI, what would it look like? What stories would it tell? What values would it embody? And how would you ensure that it serves as a force for good, helping to create a school culture that is both vibrant and true to its core?
Those are great questions. I'm really curious to hear what our listeners come up with.
Me too. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon to explore more fascinating ideas about the future of education.
Sounds great.